Globally, methane emissions have been increasing. Over the past 2 decades, methane emissions have increased from 7.13 gigatons of CO2 equivalent in 2001 to about 8.46 gigatons of CO2 equivalent as of 2021, as reported by Climate Watch. It is very important also to note that the energy sector is a key contributor of these global methane emissions. It contributes about 40% to global methane emissions, and out of this 40%, about 70% of such emissions is coming from the oil and gas sector. And that tells you that between 28 to 30% of emissions of methane comes from the oil and gas sector globally, and that is huge. And it means that if you're able to abate methane emissions from the oil and gas sector, it can really lead and contribute to general methane emissions reduction. The oil and gas sector, methane is emitted through 3 key areas: fugitive emissions, venting, and then gas flaring. Reducing methane emissions from the oil and gas sector is one of the key effective ways for mitigating methane emissions, whether globally or in Africa. The good news is that there are existing technologies which, as the IEA records, can potentially prevent about 70% of current emissions. And some of these technologies include replacing pneumatic units in various oil and gas systems, having methane capture and utilization systems, that is, capturing the methane and using it for more productive uses, and also methane leak detection and repair through various optical imaging systems, and so on. There's been a lot of global initiatives and efforts aimed at methane emissions reduction, and some of these include the Global Methane Initiative, which was established in the early 2000s. In 2014, the Oil and Gas Methane Partnership was established, which was a group of oil and gas companies coming together to also conform to methane emissions reduction standards in their operations. The methane guiding principles also came in to really bring the efforts of civil society and other non-governmental organizations and governments actually to also begin to campaign for methane emissions reduction. The OGMP transformed into OGMP 2.0 in 2020, where it heightened various requirements around reporting for companies. In 2021, the US government and the EU led the Global Methane Pledge, where it seeks to reduce methane emissions by 30% by 2030 relative to 2020 levels. As of the end of 2023, we had about 42 African countries signed up to this Global Methane Pledge. The Global Methane Pledge seeks to undertake key measures, for instance, improving methane measurement and monitoring. We also seek to reducing methane from the oil and gas sector, and also to support international methane reduction initiatives across board. Africa's commitment to methane emissions reduction is noticeable and is commendable. However, there's a lot that needs to be done. As a matter of fact, it requires a lot of collaborations among stakeholders, a shared understanding to ensure that robust mechanisms are made to monitor and then reduce these emissions. It's about time that we create this shared understanding among stakeholders, whether companies, governments, civil society, and all other stakeholders, not just to talk the talk, but walk the talk and implement strategies that will enable us to reduce methane emissions to its barest minimum.